my name is Dave Reske, CEO of Now Speed Marketing, and welcome to this edition of Marketing in the Now, where we focus on uncovering the myths of marketing and leadership with some of the world's most interesting people. And my guest today is Mark Goloboy, founder of Marketing Growth Consulting, or Market Growth Consulting, I should say. It's a boutique firm specializing in fractional CMO services, marketing technology, and revenue marketing leadership. Mark helps hypergrowth, PE-backed, and publicly traded companies craft go-to-market strategies, build product roadmaps, and drive revenue-generating programs. And he's held executive roles at firms like TripAdvisor, Dell EMC, Forum Labs, and Demand Science. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. I'm excited to be here.
I love that intro. It sounds like you've been a busy guy, so you've done a lot of things. And I wanted to just maybe start by asking you about a little bit about your background. How do you
Yeah.
like running your own firm versus working in some of these amazing big brand companies that have been very successful?
I really enjoy it. So it has been a lot of fun thinking about things from a large enterprise, global B2B marketing perspective, and bringing some of that knowledge and experience, knowing the things that work for bigger companies that have lots of money to invest, to much smaller firms, and also helping some larger firms rebuild in a way that they can grow from.
That's great. Well, you're taking all your experience and you're making a difference with a lot of companies. So that's awesome. You know, the issue that you and I have been talking about is what's on most people's minds these days which is really around AI and how it's impacting the world. You've been studying it, you've been working with clients around it, you've been looking at it for some time. And I just wanted to start by asking you, how do you see AI in general impacting your clients and maybe the agencies that they work with?
I think we're at a fascinating point where, for about a year and a half, we've had this chat GPT driven revolution. And everyone has been talking about that by 2024, companies would be putting in place these large production use cases. I don't see it. So I work with clients big and small, and I think people are AI curious, but I think that there is a huge opportunity to help them advance the things they do, where a lot of companies don't know how. They've dabbled a little bit with ChatGPT. A lot of their junior marketers are using it without any guidelines or boundaries on how to use it. And companies, for the most part, are not investing in training and tools and production use case development in the ways they should be.
Do you think that's because the use cases aren't there, or they just don't know how to harness it, or it just fits really well at, helping us do some small tasks and that's all it will ever be?
I think it's what I see at companies is that, especially in marketing, where you've had a series of CMOs build and then leave, and a series of demand gen leaders build and then leave, you end up with half-built marketing technology stacks that don't integrate, and there's no central store or place to put AI that makes sense, and that a lot of these companies are struggling with some of the basics. Some of the projects I do, we could have done 5 or 10 years ago, and there's nothing new technology-wise that they're asking for. And that's because they don't have the foundational marketing systems built to be able to add AI in a way that makes sense.
Interesting. So do you see as we talk about AI, and well, before I ask this question, I want to just go back to one of the comments you made about being AI curious, because I think that's a really interesting way to think about it. So what do you mean by that? What is AI curious, and how does it affect marketing organizations and brands?
What I would love to hear that my clients are doing is what I do. And I don't hear this enough. So I have a window up at any given time with ChatGPT and Google Gemini and Anthropic Claude. And when I'm about to start a project, I think, how could AI help me? And some of the things just in the last couple of weeks, I had a series of agency questions and responses for an RFP. I fed them into AI and it summarized it, and I was able to compare that to my project plan to make sure I didn't miss anything. That saved me and another resource probably a day or two of work each, and that took me, a couple of minutes to write the prompt that was able to do that. I had an analytic project for a very small client that can't afford analytics people. They want to build a website so that customers can select the product based on some manufacturing company that works in the HVAC space, based on some information about the HVAC system, which product do they need from my client. There are 35,000 permutations to get to 10 products that they sell. And I was able to filter that down pretty easily to a couple of thousand. But then I leveraged ChatGPT's new math engine, O1, which if people haven't tried is really powerful. It's not a content generator, it's a math engine. So you have to think about it a little bit differently for like logical steps to things that are hard. But leveraging that, it got me down from the last couple of thousand to 181 choices that I can then go implement in a website for them with a web developer in a way that they couldn't have afforded the analytics team to do that work. ChatGPT did it in seconds.
Wow, those are great examples. You know, I love the term AI curious, and I love the idea of always having ChatGPT up. I'm starting to do that myself and using it more and more in these kind of starter projects. How do you feel it's impacting the work of senior leaders like yourself? You're able to think strategically. You're able to assign projects to ChatGPT, and the thing that I've noticed is senior people know with the result they're getting if it's good or not, and they're able to kind of iterate and push them. How do you see the leverage working with AI with senior leaders versus junior people who might be using it to just get a task done? Do you think there's more leverage there, or are they using it differently, or is the impact the same? I don't know. I'm curious about your view of that.
I think strategically is a really interesting word, and that's a good jumping off point. I don't think people give enough credit to what ChatGPT can do right now, and you can extend that to Google Gemini or Claude or others that people use. But I think it's being willing to challenge those tools to do things that you wouldn't think possible. So, when you're working at the C level or SVP level, you think, I need to spend time thinking on this, and I need my best and smartest people on it, where there's a lot of shortcuts that you can use leveraging the AI tools as they exist today, and they'll only get better. So when I am entering a new conversation with a potential client who is not in an industry that I'm familiar with, I go and try to predict which questions that client will ask me about the marketing service that I'm offering. And I ask those questions I typically put the same question into all three, the same prompt into all three. And sometimes one works better than another. And, I've been leaning on Google Gemini a lot lately, but that doesn't mean that it won't change a month from now, right? You just have to keep testing these things because they're constantly evolving. But being willing to ask those questions and thinking like a strategic marketer with an MBA and 20 years of industry experience, what questions would I ask to a fractional CMO coming in? You get out answers that are at a level you couldn't come up with a reasonable amount of research. So you have to be willing to try, but once you are, you can really be impressed with the results and get to some of the powerful problems that a client has that you could solve.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. One of the experiences that I've had is that by kind of continuing to push the conversation, ask more questions, ask follow-up conversations, I feel that people complain about it when they say, oh, I put in a prompt that says, write this article on this general topic, and they get trash back or something, not very interesting. They're not really iterating and pushing it. But, when you do that, when you have that long conversation, when I spend an hour with it and I'm kind of going back and forth on different things, I find that I get to a different level,
Yeah.
that's powerful.
A couple of the tricks I use over and over again is I tell in the beginning of the prompt, I will say, you are the CMO of a company in this industry. You are a marketing agency presenting to the CFO of a company of this size in this industry. So I'll set it and say, the response should sound like it came from, and that will then put it into the tone of a strategic consulting firm or for manufacturing companies, I think at a blue collar level of, write this like a contractor for HVAC systems at small businesses, small buildings, right? And by putting that frame on it, you get very different responses. So, for one of my clients, I do a lot of ghostwriting where I'll help them write emails to executives at companies. I don't want to sound like a strategic marketer. I want to sound like a CEO of a small contracting firm.
Hmm.
And it can do that too.
Yeah, that's powerful. Well, I love the term AI curious, and I think this idea of iterating and kind of pushing it and kind of working with it is really powerful. But what do you see as like the impact that it's going to have on marketing? So, do you see marketers using it to lower costs? In other words, I've got a staff of 20. Really, now I need a staff of 10, and I can do more with AI. Or do you see marketers saying, "Oh my gosh, I need, I had 3 blog articles on this particular topic. Now I can have 180 and answer every question that my buyers could possibly ask about this particular topic." Are they going to create more and do more, make a greater impact, or will they lower costs and they try to be more frugal? And I don't know. I love your take on that.
No, we started by talking about production use cases, and I think one of the things that certainly we help clients with, and that everyone should be thinking about, is which things were hard to scale. So which things have we always wanted to do in marketing, but we could never hire enough talent to do them. Whether that is, in the SDR function, qualifying things instantly and actually getting response, getting an instant connection to the customers as they engage, or scaling for enterprise personalization. There are things that we should be thinking about, as this was hard because it took a lot of manual resource, but it could be easier with AI. And when you start to put that frame on it, you'll think, I shouldn't hire another person. I should invest some time in looking at the AI tools that do this thing,
Mm.
right? And I think that's the right approach. From a broader perspective than that, Paul Raitzer at the Marketing AI Institute, which is phenomenal and people should engage with. They do training and other. But I just came back from their conference. Paul Raitzer says, I'm paraphrasing here, AI won't replace marketers. Marketers who understand AI will replace marketers who don't.
Mm.
So every marketer should be thinking, how can I push what I do to a broader scale? How can I work faster and smarter? How can I get more done by leveraging AI? It's not a cheat to get content out and then take it easy. It's the thing that helps you be successful because you are producing more than your peer because you're using AI. The flip side of that is that CMOs have a responsibility to provide the policies and guidelines that keep people from getting in trouble. Because if I produce something with AI and it's terrible, and there was no guideline that said that needed to be human reviewed, that needed to be peer reviewed, that needed to go through this workflow before published, then I'm at fault for doing that, but also the CMO is at fault for not providing the guideline, where what they should be doing is encouraging innovation, encouraging experimentation, putting the workflow in for human review and approval, right? Like any content would have had, right? Before you publish something, and making sure that innovation is encouraged and that there's umbrella coverage over those people so they don't get fired when they mess up.
How many firms that you're working with or have you experienced with that have those kind of policies and workflows in place? It strikes me that that's just in its infancy today.
I think the start of it is that general counsels and chief information security officers are starting to put in place AI councils at companies, and that they are starting to think about what are the risks. That is the starting point, is what are the risks for us from an intellectual property or brand or security perspective. And I don't see as much thinking about what are the business opportunities for this that's being driven by sales and marketing and product. So I think that it's important for the business value side of the business to push use cases that can be improved so that companies can keep up with their competitors. because new competitors will come in that are using these tools and surpass you, if you don't keep up. The instant answer will be no, you can't do that because it's too risky. And if we don't, as marketers, push back and say these use cases aren't risky, or we're willing to take the risk against the value that we could create by doing so, those businesses won't be successful long term.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I want to go back to a couple of the use cases that you talked about with AI. One was on content creation. This is one I'm particularly interested in.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're a digital agency, and one of our services is SEO and content creation. And one of the things I've observed is that most of our clients don't have all the content that they need because it's expensive. It's always expensive. And so many of them are, they're content to produce a couple of blogs a month. They heard, they wanted to do inbound marketing, they want to do SEO, they could produce it. And now they have a jumble of a few hundred blogs out there. It's not very well organized, not very well designed. And their competitors are now producing dozens of blog articles or dozens of content pieces, maybe not blog articles, video, audio, and other things per week, and starting to scale up there. And it just feels like there's this opportunity with AI to take it to, content production at scale. Is that one of the
Yes.
use cases that you're interested in, you're following closely? And if not, maybe what's your take on that?
No, it's definitely so the tools are already ready to do that. So I think that there is when I hear people that aren't innovating in AI talk about it, they will say things like, I just get bland content when I do that, or I don't think that's ever going to be as good as human writing. And I think that that is a missed opportunity to think about speeding up the process and leveraging analytics and human content on top of AI as an enabler. So when I think about AI content, I think about producing the first draft. So when I'm leading a department, there are junior people doing writing that needs to be reviewed. It's not very good, and they need to learn. AI is similar. The first draft is not very good. You mentioned earlier, you have to go back to the well and say, write this better. We talked about writing as the use case, like write to the persona, ask AI to do that, and it will. Be specific about the industry, but also leverage the same SEO strategy that we would have leveraged earlier. Think about where are there, where is their traffic coming to the site and not having their questions answered and bouncing? How do we create content for places that are not as valuable from a business perspective, but might increase our Google rankings by creating it? So I have a client that non-core to their product, some of the traffic thinks they're coming to learn about cannabis, and it's because of the keywords overlapping between their manufacturing business that has nothing to do with it and cannabis keywords. And what they've gone and done with AI is created a whole set of pages that are sticky and answer the questions that people come to about this cannabis thing that has nothing to do with them. They don't want that traffic. They don't want to sell. They're never going to sell anything to those people. But by keeping them on the site, all of their Google results increase. So it's purely, this goes back to like the HubSpot inbound thing of get traffic and keep that traffic in your site so that when people search for the keywords you care about, they find you higher in the rankings.
Yeah, that's powerful. It strikes me, and this is one of the areas that I'm very passionate about creating all the content that your buyers want. So, and I think that this is something marketers have talked about for a long time, but we just haven't done because it's expensive. And I think about like content for all your products across the entire phases of the buying cycle, for all the questions your buyers are answering, tailored for every industry, for every geography, every buyer type, the business economic buyer. That's a ton of content that you need. And it strikes me that, we can, one of the issues is creating the workflow with AI to do that. But it feels like there's another aspect, which is the design aspect. Once you say, hey, I've got 200 pieces of content to answer different variations of one question, how do I design a website or an interface that makes that useful? It feels like there's a whole new UX, UI piece. And maybe, I don't know, can ChatGPT help us figure that out too? Is it doing
I
UX UI? Is that, or is that more of a human UX UI function that's got to figure that information architecture problem out?
Yeah, I was designing some new pages for my agency website, right? We were adding customer stories and adding team pages so that clients, when they looked, would understand a little bit more about what we do. At the same time, I had a web developer in there saying, this is a really simple nav. Why don't you go with a mega menu? That's the way people build now. That's much more common and will show that you're a more advanced agency. Um, I put into ChatGPT this was actually a Google Gemini use case because I could put in the site. So Google Gemini can consume websites and YouTube videos, which is really helpful.
Hmm.
And I put in there, build a mega menu for this site, adding these two new pages. I put in the pages and I put in the site. And it was design work, some writing and some design work. And it came back with the mega menu with everything already written. It
Hmm.
wasn't perfect, but it was probably 70 or 80% of what I needed. And then I could go in and customize it. And now we're building that.
Yeah, that's powerful. And then as an expert, as the leader, it's easier for you to figure out if that's good. We just have a few minutes left, but I want to explore one other use case that you talked about, which is around SDR and sales. So,
Yes.
in hyper personalization, outbound calling or email. How do you see AI impacting that area? And, are you seeing people leveraging those tools and technologies today? Is that coming in the next year or two? How do you see that rolling out?
I think it's really early. So like I had a pitch from a company that was doing that today and they were taking it to, the first stage, and it's a production company that will essentially take a lead from your website and follow up with them to book the appointment. So they'll take the first 3 or 4 steps of the SDR process. But I think it won't be long before we are buying things from reps who are AI.
Hmm.
And the question is, will we know it? So when you get all the way through the process from engaging with and talking with people, whether that's over email or on a Zoom you don't get to see them, you could get all the way through buying a product without ever talking to a person. I think we're there now. So I haven't seen that tool exist, but technology wise, I think that's possible now. And
Yeah.
I'm surprised that companies haven't. But I think that will be the next generation of tools from companies like HubSpot and Salesforce and Gong and SalesLoft kinds of companies will be solving that problem in ways that definitely impact the number of SDRs that'll be at companies over time. And that's already been reduced dramatically over the last few years. I mean, there's less SDR roles because it was really hard to find the value of that previously. AI will just increase that trend.
Yeah. And make it and create a better experience for the person who's trying to get answers to their questions.
I mean, ultimately, the customer doesn't care how they're sold. They want to understand the product well enough to know, does it solve the problem they have?
Mhm.
Will it increase value more than it costs and solve a problem that I have that I need a tool to fix? If you think about that as the situation that you're selling into, you don't really need as much sales and marketing as we have today. It's really heavy weight to answer people's questions. We already know they're doing most of the research before they ever talk to an SDR or sales rep. It's just continuing that trend and creating more self-service buyers.
Yeah. And what do you think the role is of video and audio media in all of that? Because it's easy to think about. We've been talking a lot about written content created. Do you see AI being able to let us quickly create the like the video and other educational tools that buyers need to learn more about the products?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting personalization case. So if you think about how to do a brute force, which won't be necessary over time, but brute force, you could use AI to take a series of pictures and video clips and words that you put over the video, um, to personalize the talk track and the words on the slides and the imagery to industry or persona or geography or anything. So, I mean, that also exists today, and it's just a matter of tools catching up to create those things in ways that really, I mean, we've done a little bit over time with content engines, but not to the scale that an AI can do. And think about, for the person who's watching it, what do they want to see, and personalize it for that person based on just attributes about them that we've never really gotten there before with that hyper personalization that can actually create that video just for me in ways that I need to see as a Boston-based fractional CMO agency that would have these problems and want to hear these solutions. We can customize all of that through AI.
Wow. It strikes me that, we're talking about a new level of content capability, a new level of sales interaction, a new level of media that we can create. And that has implications for SEO, for GEO, right? So for advertising, we can do hyper personalization, outreach by phone, by email, by text, by inbound. There's so many different avenues, right? It seems like it's going to take a different kind of CMO thought leader to be able to get their arms around all of this. How do you see kind of CMOs starting to think about using this innovation opportunity strategically? Are you seeing them start to think about this, or are they still, kind of caught in the, hey, it helps me write the blog a little faster?
It's interesting. I went on my own 2 years ago, and it was just about the time that people were starting to use the term fractional CMO. And there are some cases where I'm working with companies that either have had a CMO or head of demand gen leave, and I'm truly filling an interim role or placing a fractional CMO who's filling an interim role. And there are lots of others where my client is the CMO, and I am helping add capability to their team in ways that they couldn't hire for. So they couldn't hire me full time. They don't have the budget for it. But one day a week, I can bring them some tech vision, some AI capability, some demand gen leadership in ways that they don't have the time for because they're busy with sales and marketing and executive conversations that are really important. And there's a way to have both. And I think that's what we'll see more and more of over time, is that a CMO will realize that they are a brilliant product marketer or a creative visionary and need to fill in those other aspects with fractional CMOs and agencies in ways that they really can't hire for and sustain the cost of their marketing departments.
Yeah. So really adding a strategic leader, maybe a part-time strategic leader to the team. Maybe it's an agency or fractional CMO who could help them think outside the box, think bigger, think more innovative, think with different technologies. Man, it's going to be a wild ride over the next year or two.
And it takes humility. You have to be
Yeah.
honest with yourself and know, I'm good at this, I'm not good at this and this, and like as a marketing leader, I came up the sales facing side of marketing. I'm demand gen and marketing operations and understand how to build the revenue projections and those kinds of things and build it all. I am not a product marketer or a creative genius. Whenever I've had successful teams where I can hire those people to help me be successful, it goes a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if someone wants to get in touch with you to learn more about your services and how you can help them, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Always through LinkedIn is easiest. I respond to all my LinkedIn. It usually helps to tell me why you're connecting, but also mark@marketgrowthconsulting.com.
That's great. Well, we'll put all those links in the podcast. Mark, thank you very much for joining me today. And fascinating conversation. There's going to be a lot happening in this area, and you're going to be in the middle of it. So great to learn from you today. So thank you.
Thank you, David. I appreciate your time.